clean to a mountain. Where it goes doesn't matter. The important thing is you're riding with your friends, flashing some chrome and spinning those wheels. Your machine is humming as you lock into curves and let it out on the straights. And the sound. It's so powerful you feel surrounded by silence. Just you and the road in your heart. We're talking hog heaven.
Better God kept it for itself.
It's like music. I want to be absolutely sure that you are an American male. You ride a Harley.
It's a freedom thing.
There are motorcycles and there are motorcycles. Then there's Harley-Davidson.
The bond between riders and their Harleys is permanent, just like a tattoo.
It's the love of the machine.
It's not just a motorcycle, it's an iron horse. It's the mythology of cowboys, outlaws, rebels, and the American frontier.
The love of the freedom.
For the faithful and loyal hog owners, the thunderous power of the Harley V-twin engine is the true heartbeat of America. And the Harley mystique is a gut feeling that lies beyond words.
It's like the old saying goes, if I have to explain it, you won't understand it.
Hollywood has had a lot of fun exploiting the outlaw on a Harley stereotype. For motorcycles and the media, it's been the bad guys, the 1%ers, who have gotten the most attention. But the Harley-Davidson story is so much more than these antisocial headline grabbers. It's the story of a community of riders, a brotherhood of the road that pays no mind to gender, money, or social status. Their common ground is a Harley-Davidson motorcycle.
We used to drive along, go across country and everything, and I'd be looking at in the rear view mirror, and all these bikers are coming up, and I said, oh my God, here they come. And my wife would say, oh God, get out the 44 Magnum, honey. You know, and the kids are saying, Daddy, boy, that looks like fun. I said, yeah, just don't look at them. Don't look at them. Now, I go up next to cars, I go, hi, how you doing? They go, oh Lord, he's gonna eat me alive.
The world of motorcycling has a long and colorful history. The danger and excitement of the sport has attracted men and women from all walks of life. For these people, riding a motorcycle has always been a declaration of freedom, a chance to celebrate one's individuality, to test one's limits, and to have some fun. The name Harley-Davidson has come to represent the sum and substance of the American spirit. And these beefy motorcycles have achieved cult status the world over.
I am a biker.
やっぱりアメリカのハーレー・ダビッソン
There's something mystique about them.
But it was only a few years ago that Harley-Davidson was a company in near ruin. They were making motorcycles very few people wanted to buy. Die-hard loyalists claimed they oozed personality. Harley detractors said it was probably oil. But the company was able to pull itself together and stage a dramatic comeback that's still going strong today. When you take off on a motorcycle, you leave behind the world of cell phones, computers, and high-tech stress, and enter one of almost religious purity. Just you and your machine. The road becomes the road with a capital R. And getting from A to B takes a back seat to what happens in between.
Take my bike. Why do I have a hog? I can get from A to B in a station wagon, a minivan, a moped, right? But for me, a Harley-Davidson, it's the ultimate driving machine. I think, therefore I do. I can go 50, boom, boom, I'm going 50. I like the smell of the exhaust, I like the rumble. I lean into a curve, she's there for me. This is interesting. This is very interesting.
Stay right where you are, because when we come back, you just might win 2 legendary Harley Deans right here on TBS.
Motorcycles that inspire such loyalty. They're certainly not the fastest bikes on the block. There are plenty of Japanese crotch rockets that are faster out of the blocks. To Harley lovers, their bikes are perfect sculptures of chrome and steel. The vibration, the power, the look, and the legend all help explain why. To many, a Harley is more than a mere motorcycle. Why Harley-Davidson is the #1 inanimate object tattooed on people's bodies. The Harley image has a lot to do with the rebirth of these muscular two-wheelers. It's a complex image, a contradictory one. To steal a line from Walt Whitman, it contains multitudes.
Hi, Mom!
Harley-Davidson is an American success story. They've been around since 1903, and they're the last and only motorcycle manufacturer in the United States. They've overcome incredible odds and near extinction by banking on the fierce pride of their workers and the loyalty of their customers. They sell every bike they make, and if you want a new one, get in line. Harley is enjoying an unprecedented level of success. To truly appreciate where they are today, you have to go back to the birth of the motorized two-wheeler.
Over the years, we've seen motorcycle toys, motorcycle books, motorcycle songs, movies, TV shows, fashion, a whole culture based on two-wheeled transportation. I know because I'm part of it. For me, riding's a way of keeping sane when the rest of the world seems to be going crazy. You get totally focused, just you and the road. Nothing else much matters at that moment. And this whole culture wouldn't exist without one key element, the motorcycle.
Motorcycles were a concept as far back as the late 1700s. The only thing missing was a proper two-wheeled vehicle. Enter the bicycle. As soon as this invention evolved into something a bit more stable, people couldn't wait to strap on an engine and invent the motorcycle. The honors go to a Frenchman named Louis Perrault, who in 1868 lashed a coal-burning steam engine onto an early bicycle called a velocipede, and voila, the motorcycle was born. Things really picked up in 1885 when German engineer Gottlieb Daimler built a cycle frame around the latest invention, the internal combustion motor. They've been raising a ruckus ever since. Daimler, a man of little vision, saw no future in his invention. He went on to found a company called Mercedes-Benz. By the turn of the century, bicycle shops all over Europe and America were making motorized two-wheelers. They just weren't sure what to do with them. Their only commercial use was as a pace vehicle for bicycle races. But all that was soon to change.
There are certain years that stand out in a person's life. Years when things happen, good or bad, that affect how you think and act. These things happen in the lives of nations, too. For the U.S., it was 1903. It was the beginning of what people called America's century. At Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, the Wright brothers realized man's age-old dream of flying. In Detroit, Michigan, Henry Ford introduced his first Model A with a vision that would revolutionize transportation. In Clarksdale, Mississippi, W.C. Handy began playing a type of music he called the blues, music that would evolve into rock and roll. And in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in that same year, some young men came together with their own dream, a dream that included an engine and two wheels.
William Harley and the three Davidson brothers, Walter, William, and Arthur, knew that for American commerce to reach its potential, great distances would have to be traveled. They saw a need for affordable transportation that could handle a road system that didn't exist yet. Their answer was motorcycles. In 1903, the names Harley and Davidson were painted on a workshop built by Arthur's cabinet maker father. Out of that humble construction came their first motorcycle. It was all of 3 horsepower, but it worked. The next year, they made 2 more, sold them both, and the world's most famous motorcycle company was on its way.
They got this whole thing started in '03 as a transportation device, much different than the way we know them today as a recreational vehicle. And they were driven, they had an idea, they had an invention, and it was a people mover.
You won't find many of today's riders thinking of their bike as a people mover. It's their passion. Their bike is a way of saying, check me out. This is mine. And the best way to establish this identity is to customize. Almost everyone who owns a Harley modifies it in some way. Some do the work themselves, planning and designing for years to achieve the perfect mechanical statement. Others go to one of a handful of artisans across the country who meticulously craft and customize each machine, molding its line and colors until it becomes an extension of the owner's personality. Each bike is a work of art, a dream in lacquer and chrome. These dreams become reality when you take them on the road. They come alive with a sound and rhythm that strikes a chord deep within a rider's soul. It's the true heart of any Harley, the V-twin engine.
I stand before the great God, Harley-Davidson.
Oh, Harley-Davidson, please protect us.
Don't go away. Harley-Davidson, the American motorcycle, will be right back with your big chance to win his and hers Harleys.
It's kind of funny how different nations are known for their certain type of engines, like the British here with their Triumphs, their Nortons, BSAs. They all have these vertical type cylinders. The Germans, BMWs, the old Zundaps, have the horizontal ones. And of course, the Americans have the good old V-twin. The V reaches people at almost a primal level. You know, B for victory, B for peace, the triangle, the pyramid. You know, some might even give it an erotic connotation. And when you add in how great it feels to ride well, then I guess that's how you get the beginning of the mystique. But Harley wasn't thinking of mystique when they first built their V-twin. They were thinking of power, doubling the power of a single. And by 1909, they needed it.
Almost overnight, motorcycles became the workhorse of America. Small businessmen put them to use, as did budget-minded families. The world had discovered a cheap and reliable form of transportation. And they were fun. At least Charlie Chaplin thought so. These were the golden years of motorcycling, a period of unmatched popularity. In 1910, 86,000 motorcycles were registered in the U.S. By 1913, America was producing more than that each year. Different makers sprang up all over the country. Names like Yale, Pope, Indian, and Excelsior. Even Sears and Roebuck got into the act. You could order this beauty right out of the catalog. The competition in the marketplace was becoming fierce. But the four partners were up to the task. Arthur Davidson traveled coast to coast, setting up one of the best dealer networks in the United States. William Davidson concentrated on the workforce, drawing heavily on the German and Italian immigrants flocking to Milwaukee. Harley was the engineer and worked on keeping the technical edge. All they needed was a good way to advertise their product, a way to show people their bike was a cut above the rest. So what did they do? They went to the races. In 1908, Walter Davidson, the president of the company, entered a two-day endurance run from the Catskill Mountains to Brooklyn, New York. Over half the entrants broke down, and Walter finished first on a stock machine with a most un-Harley-like name, the Silent Gray Fellow. From that race on, Harley never looked back. They raced on the road and in the bush. They sped around board tracks, dirt tracks, and no tracks. They powered across the desert and took on any hill that got in the way. Sometimes the hill took them. (1910 to 1917 were heady days for motorcycling. Harley had established itself on the streets and on the racetrack. It was about to enter a contest of a more serious nature. When the United States finally got involved in World War I, Harley-Davidson signed up too and went straight to the front. The motorcycles were used in battlefield communications, running dispatches between no man's land and command posts. In their trial by fire under extreme conditions, Harleys proved to be real troopers. In fact, Corporal Roy Holtz, the first American to enter defeated Germany, was pictured riding in on his trusty old hog.
You may have wondered how the Harleys got their nickname Hog. Well, it seems that around 1920 there was this old country boy on the Harley race team. And every time he'd win a race, he'd run a victory lap with his pet pig sitting on the tank. Pretty soon, the rest of the Harley racers began doing the same thing, and people started calling them the Hog Boys. From then on, Harleys became hogs. Or at least that's how the story goes. Nobody really knows for sure. What we do know is that back in 1922, Harley came out with its first 74 cubic inch engine. It was big, it was powerful, and America was ready for it.
As the 20s came roaring in, Harley-Davidson was in position as the largest manufacturer of motorcycles in America. The Enthusiast, Harley's free magazine, was being mailed to 50,000 people monthly, and the company boasted dealers in 67 different countries. America was on a collective high that even Prohibition couldn't dampen. But there was something eating away at the motorcycle industry.
Then they put the parts on moving conveyor belts. This was a great step forward because now they could regulate the flow of work and keep it moving at a constant rate of speed.
Henry Ford's assembly line was turning out Model Ts by the thousands. They were well made and they were cheap. In 1925, a basic Model T retailed for $265. A Harley 74 was priced at $325. Unable to compete, dozens of U.S. motorcycle companies went out of business. Harley was hit hard, but still had a couple of customers it could rely on. One was the U.S. Postal Service, which used Harleys to help the mail get through. The other client who came to their rescue was the police.
For the modern cops sent out to enforce traffic laws on U.S. highways today, knows that there are greater dangers than a broken speed law.
Harleys had been used by police departments since 1909, when the city of Pittsburgh first paired cops up with hogs. But the real boom came in the 20s. By the middle of the decade, over 2,500 state and city police departments were mounting their patrolmen on iron horses. Bootlegging was the crime of the time, and the bootlegger's ride was the Harley 74. Even coupled with a sidecar filled with hooch, they could still outrun police cars. The only thing that could catch them? Another Harley 74. Thus began one of the greatest contradictions in the Harley image. The outlaw rides Harleys, and the law rides Harleys.
Where do you think you're going?
Anywhere but here, man.
Bet your sweet life on that.
Cars had become the overwhelming choice of transportation, and, for many, motorcycles were considered a luxury item. This gave birth to a whole new concept, the recreation vehicle. For the first time, people were buying motorcycles not for their practicality. They just wanted to have fun. A true motorcycle culture began to emerge. The well-dressed rider could choose from an array of jackets, hats, and accessories designed specifically for motorcycling. Looks like this sport ordered right from the catalog. But even with the new riding culture, this was a hard time for the motorcycle industry. Sales continued to dwindle. Then the bubble burst.
His Excellency's car.
I'm in a hurry. To the House of Representatives. Ride like fury. If you run out of gas, get Ethel. If Ethel runs out, get Mabel. Now step on it.
Stay right where you are, because when we come back, you just might win 2 legendary Harley-Davidsons. Right?
I like riding. I like riding Evos, shovels, pans, just about any Harley that was ever made. But this old flathead here, well, it's just not my favorite kind of hog. Now, that's not to say it wasn't dependable. That engine stayed in production for almost 45 years, longer than any other motorcycle engine. Just seems like every time I saw one of these, there was an old meter maid sitting on it, giving some poor son of a gun a parking ticket. But nowadays, things have changed. You see these bikes turning up at custom shows and rallies, usually all tricked out, too. Chromed up, fancied up, some of the most outrageous bikes around. But when the Flathead first came out, folks weren't too concerned with chrome. It was 1929. And what people were worried about was survival.
The Great Depression, ushered in by the stock market crash, crippled the world's economy. Fully 1/3 of America's workforce was unemployed, with no welfare, no food stamps, no unemployment benefits, nothing but poverty. By 1931, only 2 U.S. motorcycle companies were still in existence, Harley and Indian, and both were struggling. The motorcycle scene in America virtually ground to a halt. Nobody had the money to buy gas, much less a new bike, and Harley sales fell to an all-time low. The motor company had to look overseas to survive, and it was foreign sales which kept them alive. Harleys were soon turning up in the most distant places, from Tierra del Fuego to the jungles of Rangoon. This is when the cult of Harley-Davidson really began. And today, it's stronger than ever.
It's the name, it's the image it conjures up, isn't it? It's so many things, and I think over the years, it's become stronger. You've got the classic American image, the 50s styling on this. This is a brand new motorbike, and yet it looks like it's come out of the 1950s.
They are the cat's meow, but not many people have them. We have a lot of BMWs. Well, Germany is close, and they are excellent bikes, I must say. But, well, this whole product has an image to it, and everyone would like to have one.
Harley-Davidson is a motorcycle that you can make like your personality. You can change it like you want and make it exactly like your personality decides.
Harleys were popular throughout Asia back then, but by the mid-30s, most of these bikes were being adapted for combat. The world was once again on the verge of war.
You know, when the producers asked me to introduce this segment, they said I'd be doing the knucklehead era. You think they're trying to tell me something? You know, when people talk about panheads and flatheads, what they're really referring to is the shape of the engine, like right here. The valve covers on the cylinder heads look sort of like knuckles. Hence, knucklehead. Harley speak, you got me? They were considered the father of all modern Harleys, the first overhead valve engine. Now, don't ask me about valves. I don't know anything about that. Knucklehead will do for me. Came out in 1936. That's a pretty good year for the United States of America. We were just beginning to come out of the Depression.
America was at last feeling a sense of relief. The economy wasn't completely healed, but new programs were getting the nation back on track. People could finally indulge in the joys of motorcycling. Picnics, games, and rallies were happening all over the country, and there was a renewed spirit of fun in the land. Hollywood celebrities like Clark Gable, Ward Bond, Van Johnson, and Robert Young were seen tooling around studio lots on their Harleys. By 1942, the U.S. was involved in its Second World War, and once again, Harley-Davidson answered the call. Harleys were being pumped out at the rate of 1 every 5 minutes, almost all in support of the defense effort. In true Harley spirit, the military motorcycle division became known as Hell on Wheels and was used extensively in reconnaissance, communications, and police work. But it wasn't just the guys who rode for their country.
In mountain country, a woman's motorcycle corps takes to the field. Trained as dispatch riders, they carry messages and first aid equipment to lonely outposts. Women of America serving on the home front.
A jubilant United States emerged from the war a world leader and ready for prosperity. Harley-Davidson was ready too. Their last domestic competitor, Indian, was about to go under. The GIs were coming home confident and cocky. They were eager to enjoy their hard-fought freedom and ready to rub shoulders up against peacetime America.
Big chance to win his and hers Harleys.
1948 was the vintage year for Harley. It was the year they first rolled out the Panhead. Now, this was the bike to customize, the bike you got to chop, like I did. Now, this bike looks familiar. We have a 42-degree rake, extended forks at the front end, this teardrop gas tank. It's a chopper. Now, we've all heard the term chopper, but actually, riders started using it right after World War II. Returning GIs came back and started chopping things off their bikes to make them lighter. You know, they chop off the headlight, chop off the fenders, hell, they chop off the front brake. We needed to stop. The whole idea was to make your bike lighter and go faster. But when I designed Captain America here, we had something else in mind. We needed to have a little style. We needed to be cool. But even the idea of cool started in the late 40s, right about the time this little incident took place that rocked the motorcycle world.
Hollister, California, July the 4th, 1947. Motorcycling's day of infamy. A motorcycle rally is invaded by a group of rowdy bikers who proceed to terrorize the townsfolk. Police are called in to quell the disturbance, which then gets blown out of proportion in a Life magazine article. This two-fisted, beer-guzzling brute lounging on his Harley chopper would soon be found looking up from the coffee tables of millions of Americans. They stared back in horror at this threat to society, and overnight the image of the motorcyclist went from enthusiast to outlaw. Many biker gangs were started in this post-war era. The most notorious took their name from a 1930s Howard Hughes movie. Without exception, the motorcycle of choice for this new element was the stripped-down Harley. The outlaw image was a public relations nightmare for Harley-Davidson and a dream come true for Hollywood. A few years later, a movie based on the Hollister incident hit the big screen. America's disaffected youth now had a new role model they could believe in: the rebel.
Hey, somebody tell me what that means. BRMC. What does it mean? Black Rebels Motorcycle Club. Isn't that cute? Hey, Johnny, what are you rebelling against?
What do you got? For the people of Northeast Ohio, the future holds 100,000 new homes.
It was the 1950s in all their glory. Tracked houses, shiny appliances, and new cars kept everyone happy and complacent, at least for the adults.
The Motoramic Chevrolet, with the history-making new Turbofire V8 engine.
For the kids, rock and roll was king, and having fun a #1 priority. A new youth culture had sprung up, and with it, a generation gap. Riding a Harley made the gap even wider.
Supposed to be my buddies on Highway 17. How'd I get there?
Which way are you coming from?
It don't matter which way I'm coming from. It's which way I'm going to.
It had gotten to the point where motorcycles were immediately associated with antisocial slackers out to steal your daughters.
You know who they are?
No, I don't know.
Strange type of this neighborhood. And you stay away from them, young lady.
The motorcycle world was becoming polarized. The new chopper-riding rebels referred to stock Harleys as garbage wagons. Some Harley dealers refused to work on stripped-down bikes. All this was affecting sales. Motorcycles had a real image problem. They were for hoods and greasers, not citizens. Perhaps to offset the negative publicity, Harley began manufacturing golf carts. If you lowered the chassis and added some chrome... Steve McQueen didn't fit the 50s image of motorcycling. He was kind of a rebel, kind of a hero, and definitely cool. Bikes were his passion, and after this movie was released, every boy in America wanted one. And there were a lot of boys in America. The baby boomers were coming of age, and motorcycles were in. Every boy in America wanted a motorcycle. Unfortunately for Harley, the bike he bought most likely came from overseas, especially Japan. And in a strange twist of fate, it was Harley-Davidson who helped start the Japanese motorcycle industry. In the 1920s, an earthquake destroyed much of Japan's roads. Harley shipped over an entire factory of parts and tools, and the Japanese produced their own Harleys under the name Rikuo. 40 years later, Honda and other Japanese manufacturers were winning over young American buyers with their low-cost, entry-level motorcycles. These were sporty, non-threatening machines even a parent could love.
Ready to ride, Judd? Always. You know, in the late 60s, it seemed like the whole country was on a rock and roll high. And to me, motorcycles were an essential part of that scene. They were everywhere it was cool to be. And that's when people started seeing the riders as the new American cowboys. We like riding the Iron Horse, too. That's right. But Harley wasn't thinking about images when it introduced the shovel head back in 1966. Bankruptcy was a real possibility, and the U.S. was about to be torn apart.
The turbulent 60s saw a country in upheaval. There was a war nobody wanted and civil rights many did. Youth culture blossomed into counterculture.
Haven't you ever been to Love-In?
No.
God.
Freedom was the battle cry, and America's youth were letting their freak flags fly. On the motorcycle scene, the outlaw element, or one-percenters, were giving everyone a hard time. Hollywood, ever willing to sensationalize, came out with a whole slew of motorcycle movies. The rebel image of the 50s was history. The wild ones were now bikers.
Yeah, we don't want nobody telling us what to do. We don't want nobody pushing us around.
Just what is it that you want to do?
Well, we want to be free. We want to be free to do what we want to do. We want to be free to ride. And we want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. And we want to get loaded.
What Peter Fonda really wanted was the chance to make his own motorcycle movie. He got it. Easy Rider, A Tale of Two Long Hairs Searching for America, crystallized the spirit of the 60s for an entire generation. They were looking for freedom, not trouble. And they did it on a Harley. It was potent imagery, and it became an important part of the Harley mystique.
Here is a part of a single day's production.
Mystique wasn't enough to keep Harley in the black. Japan continued to make inroads in the American motorcycle market, and Harley was hurting. Help arrived in the form of AMF, a sports equipment manufacturer. They bought the world's most famous motorcycle company in 1969. Harley-Davidson, a symbol of individual pride for 6.5 decades, was now under the umbrella of corporate America. There are many who still mutter about the AMF bikes. They increased production, but quality control was lacking. A popular saying among riders during this era was, buy a Harley, buy the best. Ride a mile and walk the rest.
Harley-Davidson is more than a machine.
We had quality problems. We made too many products, and we didn't have our hand on quality the way we should have. And that was a mistake. We're pushing too many out just to get them in the pipeline. And if we did anything wrong in those years, that was it. But I mean, AMF did have deep pockets, and they were willing to get into our R&D funding that we needed.
AMF kept the Harley name alive, but they couldn't keep the Japanese from dominating the market. By 1979, Harley-Davidson commanded a mere 4% of U.S. motorcycle sales. The one-time leader of the pack had hit a very bad stretch of road.
Stay right where you are, because when we come back, you just might win 2 legendary Harley Deans right here on TBS.
Man, it's hot. Yeah, it is.
I think I'll get a peach. Would you like one?
Yeah, I'll take one. You know, it wasn't too many years ago. A couple of riders pulled into one of these sleepy little southern towns. Everybody's heads would be turning, saying, uh-oh, here comes trouble. But in the 1980s, a lot of that started changing. People started realizing that it wasn't so much how many wheels you rode in on or what you wore, but what was right here in your heart.
Let me tell you something, son. Beneath the leather and the beards, there's some really big hearts.
You're right about that, Dad. And don't forget about the ones that don't have beards. There's a lot of ladies out there riding around, too.
That's true.
Harley-Davidson also went through a bit of a change. Now, it's pretty hard to explain a phenomenon, especially while it's still going on. But what we do know is when it all began.
In 1981, a group of executives and family members bought Harley-Davidson back from AMF. It was a risky move. The Japanese still had a lock on the market, and there was a recession going on. But the Harley mystique had grown stronger. People were tired of cookie-cutter bikes from Japan. They yearned for a motorcycle with character, something with personality. This was Harley territory. All they had to do was build a better bike. Production and quality techniques, some borrowed from Japan, were put into operation. But more important, management and employees went to rallies, met with riders, and learned firsthand what they wanted in their bikes. When the Evolution, or the blockhead motor, appeared in 1984, people began to notice. They had made a better bike, and the loyal and faithful hog worshippers were ecstatic. No longer did they have to make excuses for an inferior product. And the people who were buying Harleys no longer fit the typical stereotype, as if they ever did.
Hey, this is the group from Agora Hills, California. Oh, yeah. Whole big group, the Agora Hills Riding, Polo, and Yachting Club. Yeah.
Even Hollywood changed their tune with movies like Mask.
I'm not going. Why? I don't have anything to wear.
We all chipped in, and Gar picked it out.
But you gotta wear it.
A key moment in the storied history of Harley-Davidson took place on June the 27th, 1986. It was the day they went public on the New York Stock Exchange. It symbolized a stunning turnaround for a company that just 6 years earlier was on the brink of disaster. In a world where you don't sell the product, you sell the image, Harley had plenty to spare. By 1991, they had gone from near bankruptcy to become the most successful motorcycle company in the world. It's an amazing recovery that only adds to the Harley legend. And the legend is spreading. More and more converts are being baptized in the rumble and roar of the V-twin engine. Baby boomers, bikers, white collars, blue collars, outlaws, in-laws, and the plain old law. They've all got this one thing in common: Harley-Davidson. In places like Sturgis, South Dakota, they meet by the thousands each year to ride and revel in an ocean of fat boys, soft-tails, sportsters, lowriders, and the Glide family: Duo, Electra, and Super.
You can run into a Harley rider and never met the guy before in your life, but you can sit down, you have something in common to talk to him about.
We found the most wonderful people riding bikes. The warmth, the care, the whole kit and caboodle. It's just quite amazing.
40 years ago, we'd be sitting around a table drinking beer and talking about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, you know. And now we talk about what pills we have to take to get up in the morning and what vitamins and heart treatments and aches and pains and stuff. But that's predominantly the conversation in my age group on a Harley.
In Los Angeles, as diverse a group of hog riders as you'll ever see come together for an annual event called the Love Ride to raise not hell, but money for muscular dystrophy.
I can't think of another group of guys that would, and girls that would come together for a cause as readily as bikers would.
For a songwriter or a screenwriter, there's a place you have to get quiet sometimes to work. And if I can't find that quiet place, I get on my bike.
Harley-Davidson has become an American ambassador. Millions the world over are scrambling to buy into the Harley legend. Well, almost everyone. A Frenchman with a real attitude was recently quoted as saying, "You Americans have no culture, none. The only thing you have given the world are rock and roll and Harley-Davidson."
Yeah, well, that might be the case. But then again, what more do you need?
Okay, Harley fans, want to win 2 Harleys? Grab a pencil and paper, because it's time. This is the only time during the show we'll give you this number. So write it down and call the winner to win 2 legendary Harley-Davidsons. A Heritage Softail Classic for him and a Sportster for her. Lines will be open for 1 week till 11:59 p.m. Eastern next Thursday, June 9th. So call as often as you like. The call costs only $1.99. You must be 18 years or older to enter. Sorry, kids, it's the rule. Your call will enter you in the awesome His and Hers Harley Sweepstakes. All callers will receive instant Harley-Davidson trivia. What, you don't like the phone? No problem. Mail it in. No phone call is necessary to enter. Send a postcard with name, address, age, and phone number to TBS His and Hers Harley Sweepstakes, P.O. Box 7888, Atlanta, Georgia 30357. 40 seconds from now, this commercial will be history. So write this number down. This is your big chance, so call and enter to win His and Hers Harleys. Call the number on the screen and enter to win 2 Harley-Davidsons. Each call costs only $1.99. 10 seconds from now, this commercial's over. Don't miss your big chance to write this number down. Call before 11:59 p.m. Eastern next Thursday, June 9th, to enter to win the His and Hers Harley Sweepstakes. Only on TBS. Because there's no such thing as a rebel without a hog. Sponsored in part by Domino's.
Chasing 2 armed prisoner escape.